Recording in progress.
And he
Prabhuji,
said
the
that
volume
this
is low.
my-
It was nice initially, and then something you changed and it became low.
You are able to hear now? Hello?
It's a little faint, Prabhuji.
You are able to hear?
Yeah. Now it's better. Better. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So Sri Krishna explained to Arjun that at no point of time one should give up. Then he explained three kind of renunciation. In the mode of ignorance, just giving it up. Second is because of fear, giving it up. That is Rajogun. And Sattva Guna, as we discussed yesterday, was based upon not being obsessed with the result of one's activity. We elaborately explained. Then Sri Krishna explained to Arjuna the 5 causes for success. Right? The place of action, that is kshetra, instrument to perform those actions, upakarana, then the endeavor itself, that is prayas, and the performer, person who is doing it. These are the 4 responsibility of the living entity, which is called as purushartha. And the 5th one is daiva. So when there is a harmony between purushartha and daiva, that gives rise to success. Krishna is not only talking about himself, he is quoting the Vedanta philosophy. We discussed that also. The Supreme Brahman, he becomes subservient to the laws of Shastra, and Shastras are synonymous to laws of nature. That is the yesterday's discussion. Today we are going to discuss about the nature of work, right? The natural art of work, divinity in work, and the Varna system. Here we are calling it Krishna's Varna system. Varna system is not man-made. One of the greatest unfortunate reality of people who misunderstand this whole system, it is considered as, they make it very black and white. Those who support it and those who are against it, their understanding is very superficial. You go to any part of the word Varna has got many connotations. You cannot avoid that. Right? So here Krishna is going to discuss that. How does work being performed? All this is from Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter. Imagine Krishna had to ask Arjuna, give up all your duties, all your work. What is the point in speaking all this to Arjuna, who is extremely intelligent? Because these are all very important. They make a lot of sense. Without them, you cannot function. It is just like without your occupational disposition, you cannot exist, just like Atma without the body in the conditioned platform experiences ghostly impact. Desires are there, man, buddhi, ahankar is there, but the instrument is not there. That becomes very important principle. Therefore, working requires 3 things: knowledge, object of knowledge, and the knower. Once again, please understand, there is a knowledge and what we are supposed to know, object of knowledge. And third is the knower. Such person becomes qualified to work, or he gets an impetus to perform his work. Then Krishna explains to Arjuna, what is that? Jnanam Gyayam Parigyata. Trivida Karma Chodana. He says the senses, the work, and the doer comprise the threefold basis of action. What constitute an action? किसको क्रिया कहा जाता है? The indriyas are required, right? And we have the indriyas. You need to have a work, and everybody has work to perform. And then the doer, right? In the Mahabharata, at one point of time, not Mahabharata, elsewhere it is explained, somebody got killed and Yamaraj came to capture him. Yamaraj's assistant came to capture him. And what happened? That person was very smart. He said, I didn't kill. It was my hand. I am not responsible. Right? But here Bhagavad Gita, Krishna makes it very clear. You need an instrument. You need a work, indriyas, kriya, and the doer of the work. These three comprises action. Imagine how much Sri Krishna emphasized on action, activities. Right? In one place, Srila Prabhupada explained that living entity is active in this body. How much the living entity is active in the body? Imagine when there is the freedom for the living entity will be more active, not chanchalta, not restlessness, but a concentrated action which is almost like a samadhi. Therefore, our Rishi Munis have explained there is karma samadhi, there is a jnana samadhi, and there is a bhava samadhi. Bhava samadhi is the absorption of one's consciousness into the deity whom they worship. Right? Like Dwaruka, when he was worshipping Sri Krishna, there were constant tears from his eyes. Bhava samadhi. Jnana samadhi means when you are looking for wisdom, discovering. You become actually one, you become one with what you are looking for. Absorption in discovery. And then karma samadhi is people, whenever you like something or there is an emergency, one can easily forget food and water also. Hours together. If you go and talk to the soldiers when they have a combat, they have to attack something. For 3 days, 4 days, they actually lie down in one place, rarely drink some water, eat as little as possible, and complete that mission and come back and celebrate. That is karma samadhi. All right. So that becomes very important principle for one to perform his action. And then how does it impact? That these activities are impacted by three gunas. Another profound presentation of Sri Krishna. Nowhere, anywhere in the world, psychology world, psychiatric world, the Christian world, the Quranic world, the Parsi world, does not get into the details of three modes of material nature. As we discussed yesterday, even the faith, when people say faith can move mountain, now this understanding can give rise to deep tamoguna. Right? There is a blind faith, but there is no process of how to reach there. Therefore, even Shraddha, which is a great asset for the living entity to move forward, has been divided into three parts: Tamogun Shraddha, Rajogun Shraddha, and Sattvagun Shraddha. So, in accordance with three modes of material nature, there are three kinds of knowledge, action, and performers of action. Knowledge, three kinds; action, three kinds; and people who perform action. These are all divided into sattva, raja, and tama. Simple. If you're eating sattvic food, the food may be sattvic. The process of eating, how you eat, there is intense rajoguna, there is moderate rajoguna, there is tamo mishrit rajoguna, right? Because action, wherever there is action, that is called as Rajoguna. Raja, which pushes you to do something, that is Rajoguna. And when you get exhausted because of action, you go to sleep, you lie down somewhere. That is Tamoguna. We need Tamoguna also. And if you know the right understanding when to use Tamoguna, when to use Rajoguna, that is substance, that is Sattva Guna. So all these three gunas are always existing depending upon who you are, what is your interaction, what is your surrounding. Sattva, Rajo or Tamo basically dominate the person's consciousness, including in the religion. Therefore, most of the time in the modern times, faith is extremely radical. It is basically Rajo and Tamo centric, where my conviction in God is based upon how I undermine somebody else. The ability to see God in everything, everywhere, when it is non existent, we become blindly loyal. So, what to speak of activities also? Then Krishna talks about, O son of Partha, understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating. That understanding is established in the mode of goodness. So, therefore, nothing is established out of sentiments. I gave the example of sports yesterday, right? The Bharat, if it has to rise, it has to overcome these greatest obstacles. The entertainment itself is not an obstacle. Playing itself is not an obstacle. Politics itself is not an obstacle. And religion itself is not an obstacle. But the way we get obsessed with them, right? The entire emotions, like somebody asked this question, that if there was a choice of liberating those 41 people stuck in the tunnel in Uttarakhand, many people didn't even know, right? They were all absorbed in what's going to happen. India will win the World Cup or not. Imagine if you are asked by God, what would you want? Releasing those 41 people from the tunnel at the cost of India losing the World Cup. एक tough प्रश्न है, right? One will give you satisfaction, this devotee was saying. One will give satisfaction and other will only create excitement born out of intense Rajo and Tamogun. Huh? So therefore here Sri Krishna is asking straight question. Who is responsible for garibi? Who is responsible for disease? Who is responsible for cancer? It is very easy for people to say, what kind of God is this? How can he not provide all the better facilities for us? Why there is suffering? Please understand, the Supreme Lord does not create any suffering. It is the land of duality, no doubt. If you study carefully, there is greater stability in the world, even though people try to create a disruption. Still, more number of people are healthy compared to those who are sick. More number of people are in the outside hospital compared to those who are in the hospital. More number of people, even if you take out of 5 people, one is suffering mental disease, but 4 are good. Right? That is what the Avatara Tattva come to establish Dharma. And what is Dharma means? Dharma means simple, logical judiciousness. And that logical judiciousness is asked by Krishna to know what is to be celebrated, what is to be feared, what is to be done, what is not to be done. Let us do an homework. The homework is how our wealth is concentrated in one place. Right? We are willing to, again, it is not the, we are not blaming the politicians, the sports people, the entertainment people. Right? People are easily blaming, oh, Lord Ram basically sent Mother Sita to the forest. Who is responsible for that? Large number of people in Ayodhya. It was not only one washerman. Don't blame washerman. There is no description of washerman in the Valmiki Ramayana. It says in every corner, every chaurai par, every square, they were glorifying Sri Ram. Most of his activities. But you know what? He brought his wife back to Hastinapur. Is it possible for back to Ayodhya? Is it possible my wife runs away and I'll bring her back? It was not a running away case. Most people now also, if their female family member has been mistreated, abused, they try to keep things hidden. Arey, let us not go anywhere. उसका नाम खराब हो जाएगा. अरे उसका नाम खराब नहीं, उसके प्रति कुछ हुआ है. She is not contaminated, but we consider she to be contaminated. Therefore, those 16,000 girls who were released by Krishna from the clutches of Narkasur, they told Sri Krishna, we have nowhere to go. Nobody will accept us. We are just like a Havishya Anna, which is about to be offered to deities, has been touched by a dog, cannot be offered. Our situation is like that, Sri Krishna. We are bound, at least protected. Now we are free. Where will we go? And that is the time Sri Krishna decided, because he had the capacity, he had the power, and Satyabhama approved his marriage. She said, you have to marry all of them. Right? Those unprotected, rejected by the very family member, was accepted by Sri Krishna, expanding into 16,100 palaces, along with his own expanded forms. And what do we call? Oh my God, Krishna is so flirty. Hindus, right? Those who had the background of the scripture, they speak such a ill word. Read this verse. It is so important to understand. We invest money, we invest our wealth where we are not supposed to invest at all. How do you think in the world when the greatest of the scientists makes 3 lakh rupees per month? The biggest terrorist BCCI, I'm not saying they're terrorist, but the concentrated wealth which cannot be used for the cause of people, charge them 50% tax. Right? Why the BJP government? Forget the Congress government. They will never. Why they don't charge? Concentrated wealth. कोई बात नहीं करेगा उसके बारे में. Right? Wherever the wealth is concentrated, and who is responsible for that? Just like the citizens of Ayodhya were responsible for speaking ill about Mother Sita, similarly, every citizen is responsible. He cannot, she cannot act as if I don't know. No, the citizens have the power to bring back growth in their life. Then Rama Rajya will come. Then Dharma Rajya will come. Right? This is a very important verse. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita is extremely important for us to understand. Yes. Opposite understanding is the mode of ignorance. Right? When we understand things in the opposite direction, Yeah, so understanding which cannot distinguish between the dharma life and the adharma life is in the mode of passion. Right? First, to understand what to do, what not to do, very clear, that is sattva. But here, not able to understand, that is rajo. And then comes opposite understanding, investing where we are not supposed to invest, and not investing where we are supposed to. Right? One of the greatest charity which Shastra talks about is empowering people to grow educationally. The mental education, the physical education, right? There we don't. The parents are worried spending crores and crore rupees of marriage, right? Hundreds and thousands of crores of rupees. With that, if people are willing to spend 20% of that money to empowering people, these are Shastric references. Sharing our joy with somebody else. Recently, I was in one place in Bhubaneswar. I went to this school run by one person, right? And how many children are there? In one campus, 40,000 children, right? They were from the forest tribal community. Imagine the potential if they are given a right surrounding, some sensibility, it doesn't matter what kind of background. According to their disposition, they can be made into amazing people. If they were not given that facility, they would become Naxalites. Naxalites and communists are made for one reason, because of their bad behavior. And second, the society does not even care to share their resources with others. Therefore, Krishna's Bhagavad Gita, in the yesterday's part when we were discussing, what does it say? Yagya dana tapa karma pavanani manushina. Dana, right? However big you are, however great spiritually you are, that is part of your contribution. In the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, in Dwarka, Sri Krishna on a regular basis, he would invest in fetching the water through building the wells. He would plant the trees. Why would Krishna do that? Why does he do mundane work of working for planting the tree? No, unless somebody plants the tree, unless somebody does some excavation of the well, the future generation will not have anything to drink. Or even if there is a water, the water will become so scarce, then people will sell the water. Everything will be monetized. There is a book called as What Money Can't Buy by Michael Sandel, a very amusing book, right? And therefore, opposite understanding is in the mode of ignorance. Again, reading this part of the Bhagavad Gita will give you beautiful understanding. Yeah. Just a minute, huh? Sorry. Yeah, then Krishna explains that by worship of the Lord, there is some issue with, yeah. So in the next verse, Krishna explains Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras are distinguished by their qualities of work, O chastiser of the enemy, in accordance with the modes of nature. Now, in the 3rd chapter, in the 4th chapter, in the 18th chapter, repeatedly, there is a person who is born in a Brahmana family and there is a person who has got a Brahmanatva. Yesterday, I was listening to a small talk spoken by a Brahmana, Bihari Brahman Za, a socialist and a communist. And what was he saying? He says, Brahmanatva jo hai na, वही डोमिनेशन का कारण है. He was openly slandering. What is the definition of word Brahmanatva? Brahmanatva is not capitalistic idea. I'm anyway not born in a Brahman family, but I know what is Brahmanatva. Brahmanatva means when you become magnanimous to accept anybody, offer them education, empower people, right? One of the greatest quality of true Brahmana is his Brahmanatva. And what is that Brahmanatva? Ability to expand himself and give knowledge to others. Right? Kshatriyatva means what? Kshatriyatva means not fearful of protecting others. Vidura, who is apparently supposed to be born in a Shudra family, but having a high Brahmanatva. When Vidura was dying, they were about to cremate his body. There was a voice from the sky. Do not cremate his body. It requires worship. वो असली सन्यासी थे जहां से आवाज सुनाई दिया. Right? The Dharma Vyada, he is called as Dharma Vyada, butcher, who has the Brahmanatva, who is selling meat, and once Brahmana comes to hear from him, Kaushika Brahmana, there is a discussion between Vishwamitra Muni and Chandal. Chandal who is selling dog's flesh. From the professional perspective, it is not very hygienic. Dekho, from a professional perspective, somebody is brooming the street and somebody is operating. What do they need to do? They need to take bath. You don't go and embrace a doctor who just performed a surgery. I remember one doctor told me, urologist, he said, I'm a plumber. Humorously said. And there is a reality to that also. So because of the hygiene, so the contamination, it is not that they are contaminated. Their work requires special category. But what happened, unfortunately, socially, the egoistic people, whether it is India, whether it is America, whether it is Europe, wherever, the unrefined human being become arrogant and create a distinction between one living entity against other living entities. But here again, Sri Krishna is telling Arjuna that their qualities are distinguished by their work, right? According to the modes of material nature. By following his qualities of work, sve sve karmani abhirataha, right? Samsiddhim labate nara. Imagine this verse. Easily we can understand. By following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this can be done. Does Krishna cancel here? Does it contradict with the verse of Sarvadharman Parityajya? By performing work, Krishna is saying, Sri Krishna is saying, it is his words, one can achieve perfection. How does it happen? Again, we go back to the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Tasma sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yuddhacha mayarpita mano buddhir. Right? Is Krishna is saying your work and your gratitude towards the Ishtadeva or Supreme Lord, it has the power to change your consciousness. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all pervading, man can be, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. Same explained in a greater detail. Where does Krishna say one should give up everything? He is basically taking Arjuna, when we discuss tomorrow the concept of Sharanagati, it will become more clear. But we are walking towards that journey of Sharanagati. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings, who is all pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. Is there any other need other than this translation itself? In the 3rd chapter, Krishna says that all work are a manifestation from the Vedas, and Vedas are emanating from the Supreme Brahman. And therefore, there is no difference between your work and your worship. So certainly, work is worship. If you understand the teaching of Bhagavad Gita, if you are able to invoke the principle of divinity in your work, then your work becomes worship, because you are able to offer your work itself as a arpan to the Lord. Like somebody was mentioning, I think Peja or somebody explained, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. What is that toyam? The toyam is water. One may say, you know what? I did such a great abhishek in my house that I got waters from 108 tirthas. Good. You have the resources, you can do that. But there is one more water. There are two more waters. The one water, when the tears are flowing from your eyes, after putting all that efforts, somewhere you find you are not reaching your destination. And because of that helplessness, the tears from your eyes roll out. That water is also very pleasing to Krishna. And similarly, when you are sweating, right? Those sweat becomes like a pearls, because they show genuine hard work with the spirit of this is what I can offer. Yat karoshi, yadashnashi, yat juoshi. Therefore, the entire Bhagavad Gita is a symphony, flowing towards perfectly. There is no contradiction. Krishna does not play around with anybody. He is taking Arjuna through the whole process of all yogas, right? Not contradicting. And therefore, here he says that you can attain perfection, my dear Arjuna. And then this is another verse which is spoken twice, just like Manmana Bhava Madbhakto Madhyajimam Namaskuru. Just like that is spoken twice, 9th and 18th chapter. Now this verse, Shreyan Swadharma Vigunaha Paro Dharmat Swanishtita Swabhava Niyatam Karma Kurvan Napnoti Kilbisham. He said it is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, right, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Prescribed duties according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. If you're a Kshatriya, right, for Gandhiji, this verse did not make any sense, unfortunately. He couldn't conceive the concept of violence, right? And unfortunately, there was so much of aggression about non-violence at the cost of hundreds and thousands of people were getting killed because of such unreasonable non-violence. Ahimsa, parama dharma is there, right? But himsa is a upakaran also there when somebody does not listen to. Will Durant, very nice, beautiful, small book, he explains the history of 4,000 years. And he says out of 4,000 years of history, only 311 years of peace. Right? Even those who are speaking about the peace, in Bharat also, thousands of cases are there in the court. Immediately, brother is fighting with the sister, sister is fighting with her other sister, right? Husband is fighting with the wife, How many cases? Nani Palkiwala had said, if there is anything which is next to eternality of the religion, it is the civil suit in India. Who is responsible? God is responsible. Our ego is responsible. Therefore, here, if somebody understands this, Swadharma requires courage. Like I remember one educationalist said, you know what, people talk about being free, but they don't want to be free. Because freedom means one has to take responsibility. Slavery is a good choice, humiliating, but still there is so-called pursued stability where you don't have to take the responsibility. Here Krishna, in the previous verse, in the 3rd chapter, what does he say? He says, Nidhanam Shreya. Even if it brings death to you, Arjuna, still one should perform one's own duty. And that spirit is even there now. The large number of Indian soldiers, Bharatiya soldiers who are there in Indian army, they come from the family of the soldiers only. And many of them have the previous legacy losing their life. If you remember, there was this Hanumantappa in the Siachen glacier. You know, he was buried in the snow and he was in coma for many days. A typical simple Kannadiga from North Karnataka. His wife went to that place after some years in the army cantonment. And what is that spirit? She said, up until now, the girls are not allowed to go and guard in Siachen glacier. When my daughter grows up, if the rule is changed, my daughter wants to be there. She has lost her husband. Go and talk to the army soldier. There is no such thing as nepotism. Better to have nepotism in these areas. Right? There they don't need nepotism. They have the spirit of their parents, their grandparents, their legacy, their community. Right? So that spirit is so important. Even if the death comes, I want to do. It is not impractical stories. Now also, more than 60% of the soldiers, I met recently one school principal, right? It was so pleasing to meet. He said, I wanted to be something beyond being a teacher. He tried. He cleared the UPSC examination. And during the interview, he was not able to clear. Then he became a school principal. In his family, there more than 40 people are school principal. And he was telling, unfortunately, he said, you'll find many good school principals coming from the teacher's background, want to teach. There is no big money, right? But there is a passion to teach. And unfortunately, most of the educational centers are controlled by uneducated people who have no connection to education. They see children as simply a product for them to make more money. He said, such a huge disaster. Who is responsible again? Right? God is responsible. Some leader sitting somewhere else is responsible. Most people do not want their children to become school teacher while expecting school should have good teachers. Right? The farmers are not becoming a farmers. They're giving up farming. What will we eat? Tablets? Right? So therefore, these are issues where Krishna has the courage to speak to Arjuna. And then every endeavor is covered by some sort of fault. Just as fire covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work. Again, not give up the work, which is born of his nature, O son of Kunti. even if such work is faulty, you should not be giving up. So here Krishna talked about Varna Dharma. He talked about seeing divinity in the work itself. He is assuring Arjuna. What does he assure to Arjuna? My dear Arjuna, when you are performing your work, just like there is a smoke in the fire, there is no work in this world is one favorable compared to other work. You cannot choose your work based upon this is favorable for me and that is not favorable for me. What is favorable for you and what is not favorable for you, it is based upon your disposition. If you have the spirit of a warrior, if you have the spirit of a police officer, right? I remember one Maratha, a very powerful person. He took to the path of spirituality. He was working in the register in Vidhan Sabha in Maharashtra. And then he passed this examination where he was selected directly as an assistant police commissioner. Then he asked his counselor what to do, because if you join the police department, then you have to deal with the criminals. You have to chastise them. Sometimes you have to show them what others cannot understand in the words. क्या करना चाहिए, जाना चाहिए, नहीं जाना चाहिए. Fortunately, he chose to go, and few devotee friends advised him, "Arey, yes, you should go." His work tested him whether he is qualified to do that or not. There was a riot in one place, and about 10,000 people gathered, pelting stone at the police. And the police commissioner, his name was also very good, Himmat, something like that. And he asked this person who was practicing devotional service, he said, "What the hell are you doing? Shoot there." Before that, he had called his friend devotee, "Prabhuji, काय करायचं आपण? गोळी मारायची का? Right? Should I shoot?" Now, if Arjuna chooses not to shoot, they will destroy you. So one bullet is shot at the foot of one of the biggest criminal who was instigating the people. All the 10,000 people dispersed. Now today, if you talk to him, he says, if people have the disposition, they have the spirit of dharma. If we have 2 to 3,000 such people joining the department, you can actually create a mini Rama Rajya. He said, the kind of work I'm able to do, I'm not the best of the person, right? But whatever I'm able to do, I can guarantee you it has given a lot of facility for people to grow. That was his disposition. That was his capacity. Somebody who's good at making money, don't call them as greedy. Right? If they have the foundation of making wealth and they have the connection to dharma, then they will give biggest of the charity also, because money has to be earned by somebody. Somebody has to have the power to rule also. Somebody has to teach, and somebody has to do farming. These 4 occupation, right? What is the 4 occupation? The educational occupation, the administration occupation, the protection occupation, that is administration also, and production occupation, and then providing a labor for this occupation will always remain. When these 4 occupations are challenging their own occupation, I don't want to do this. I don't want to teach. I don't want to grow. I don't want to protect. I don't want to work in facilitating these people. Then how will you chant? how will you build your temples? What food will you offer to the deities? All right. A farmer is the original cook in the kitchen of the temple because he produces something. If there are no people to protect, we have seen during Aurangzeb time, 4,000 temples were destroyed. The temple which is coming in Ayodhya, right? It was the dream of our ancestors. They fought, they dreamt, they felt that something is going to happen. And of their earnest hard work, their labor, eventually allowing Ram Lalla to be installed on the 22nd Jan. All right. And it is not simply one may say, hey, what is this Ram temple? Instead of they should have built a hospital, they should have not done like this. Is the battle of civilization for the right reason. It will increase the confidence of the people, increase the confidence of the civilization, and at the same time it will increase the gratitude of every entity who wants to come closer to Ram, implement his principle, which is nothing but Bhagavad Gita only, and become daring as much as possible and experience divinity in their very work. And it is not a very easy job. It's a very hard labor. It's an impossible task. Right? Almost impossible. And therefore, Krishna brings the concept of Sharanagati. And what is Sharanagati? Sharanagati is not a demand. Sharanagati is the assurance. Sharanagati is not a redundance of other activities. Sharanagati is support for all what Krishna has spoken now. Oh, how is it possible? ये तो होगा नहीं, ये कैसे होगा? You know, I am an ordinary person. Yes, you are an ordinary person. You try your bit, and the divine energy will come. So rather than looking for the miracle, reading about miracle, hearing about miracle, expecting the miracle, the word Sharanagati will teach us how to experience miracle. So tomorrow we will meet at 7:30 to understand this principle. If you have any questions or comments, people can ask in the chat box.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Truly, Sri Krishna is so inclusive, so developmental, of the diversity all around us. So we encourage you to ask your questions by putting your question in the chat box. So till then, Prabhuji, there's a question that, based on my disposition, I choose my profession, I choose to stay in the Grihastha ashram. What about samskaras? What about culture? How does that get ingrained?
See, disposition, Arjuna also has the disposition of warrior, and Duryodhan also had the disposition of warrior. Duryodhan got the ritualistic samskaras done, but the refined sanskara was not given to him. I have spoken this many times. When Dhritarashtra inquired from, I think, Sanjay, he said, let them only teaching skill to the Kauravas. He was not interested in giving good values to his son. He wanted to make them expert. Duryodhan's father, Dhritarashtra, is like a typical modern Hindu father and mother. What is it? Go to MIT, go to BTech, whatever you need to do, get that skill. That is most important. Forget all this religion, spirituality, dharma. It will not come to your aid. What happens? The first thing before rejecting God, they reject their very family only. जिस माता पिता ने उनको पढ़ाई करने के लिए बोला था, उसी माता पिता को छोड़ देते. Right? They are only saying, when the girls want to marry such people, what they are asking this question: do you have old furniture in your home? And who is responsible for being called as old furniture? Because the parent decided to separate their material skill at the cost of consciously slandering the concept of sanskara. I remember somebody born in a Brahmin family, a father is telling his son, he said, जब मैं मरूंगा ना ये फालतू ये श्राद्ध वगैरह मत करो, they give drink to my friends और तुम भी शराब पियो. He's already in hell. There is no such thing as, I have not seen hell, but this consciousness, this idea itself is hell. Arrogantly speaking about, oh, I will do this, right? Sometimes you see this reel where young girls are teaching how to make a cocktail, Indian girls, while talking about women empowerment. How can a girl not understand the entire exploitation, abuse, violence happened against women in India? Why? Because the men were consciously made to drink the liquor to such an extent that destroyed the family. The very reason Bharat was protected, even if you go now to the villages, the best part is women don't drink. अभी भी नहीं पीते वो लोग, जानते हैं जैसे एक स्त्री शराब पीती है, she is basically canceling, desensitized, I don't care attitude about whatever happened to our women, while going and speaking, our women should be empowered. For the women to see that some other girl drinking and enjoying and talking about how to drink is one of the greatest pain and insult to them. तो इसलिए social awareness, alertness of our surrounding, कि क्या सही है क्या गलत है, ये भी इंटेलेक्चुअल संस्कार है, ये भी देना होता है, केवल रिचुअल का संस्कार नहीं. That is a tool to give the knowledge, right? So therefore we are not interested in only learning the school. Even the modern education, if you study carefully, there are 4 pillars of education: skill, knowledge, right? And third is value, and fourth is character. But what do the school teach? They only teach skills and some knowledge. Consciously, I was talking to one student who was studying in engineering college. She was telling, consciously they will not give leave during the Diwali time so that you avoid meeting with your family members. Holi, there'll be no vacation, right? And even if people are performing Holi and Diwali, what does it indicate? It is surrounded by limitless sensuality, materialism, charity is not there, right? Ganesh festival, supposed to be awakening of your connection to the society, Ganapati, right? Be aware of your societal responsibility. What does Ganesh festival do? A Ganesh festival becomes perversion, right? Who is responsible for that? It is indifference of the parents make their children do like that. And now that very children, what do? They are filing case against their very parents. So isliye Duryodhan was always threatening his father, and father agreed to the threat of Duryodhan. Both got destroyed. So isliye one is the disposition and second is the samskara. When they go together, then with that disposition, rather than creating Dushasan, you create Bhima who will protect. Rather than creating Duryodhan, you will create Arjun. Rather than creating Dhritarashtra, you will create Dharmaraj, right? So these are the important principle one has to understand.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, how does one identify one's disposition?
Disposition, that is the whole thing. That is the psychological reality. There is a teacher's interaction with the student for in the beginning of the few years. There is astrological background. There is a genetic science. Now it is becoming much easier genetically also. it can be figured out what is your interest, right? Now the new education policy will also help one to focus on doing where they are good at. So astrologically, psychologically, and from the genetical science, one can understand what is one disposition and help them to grow in that direction. So there is a question here. What happens when someone does his profession without the tinge of dharma? We already answered. You become Duryodhan. You become Duryodhanly driven by Duryodhan. So therefore it's a battle between wanting to avoid being Duryodhan and wanting to be Arjun. We are not pure Duryodhan and we are not pure Arjun. So somewhere we are battling between Duryodhan and Arjun. So therefore, under the guidance of right people, if we focus, then Duryodhanism will become less and less, and Arjunism will become more and more. As I said, at this stage, we are not black and white like Duryodhan and Arjun. We are struggling. We are wanting to grow there.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, in case my disposition does not have enough money on that particular path, should I still pursue it?
We discussed this because when you realize there is less money in your disposition, then you do apad dharma. We will discuss that also. Apad dharma means circumstantial duties, right? Take a job where you make more money, and when you start making more money, some part of that money, use it for your disposition. So that risk, when you take a strategic risk, a safe risk, eventually that disposition will force you to go back to your disposition while you have already made some of your money. For everybody, there is a solution. May not happen immediately, but if you work strategically, systematically, one can go back to one's disposition. How can we see Krishna's hand in our life, in all situations? Somebody asked this question in YouTube, that we don't have to see Krishna's hand in all situations because it is very artificial. You'll never get to see. If you follow the principle, how do we know what is Krishna's will? I raised that question yesterday. I have no direct connection to Krishna. I can only imagine. I can feel this is call coming from my heart. But Sri Krishna has given such a beautiful presentation in the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, rather than seeing Krishna's hand, hear Krishna's word through Bhagavad Gita. And if you are able to follow some part of Krishna's teaching in the Bhagavad Gita, then Krishna's hand, no, Krishna's Varada Hasta will come. No, better word in Sanskrit, Varada Hasta, right? The assurance giving, the Hasta of the Lord will appear and guide us all throughout our activities.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Can we take one more question, Prabhuji?
Yes, there is one question by here. You are reading that?
This is from Anant Vijay Prabhu. Is that the one you're referring to?
No, there is two questions. Both we can take both.
By Priya Chaitanya Prabhu, the one, because I have only these
Here,
questions.
does sharing resources in society
Yes.
lead to laziness in some people?
Yeah.
Yes. When does it happen? When the political people, they throw freebies to their people in Karnataka. I was there just recently in a village, and one farmer was telling, the women are disappearing from the home. They can go anytime, sit in the bus, go wherever they want to go, right? Come whenever they want to come back. So this kind of sharing resources is in the Tamogun. Read the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna talks whom to give charity, when to give charity, what time to give charity. So here we are talking about empowering people, right? When you empower people who need some support system, then that empowerment does not make them lazy. That makes them full of enterprising, full of gratitude, and full of responsible. And they grow very nicely. Prabhuji, why drinking example included only women, whereas it is equally bad and disgusting for men too? Very yes, absolutely. Men are already, that's the whole principle is, I said, because of our women who did not drink, Therefore, the society survived. If we had left on the men and if they had forced their women to drink, the entire society would have been destroyed. Therefore, it is a crime only. In fact, the Shastras explain. Sometimes people ask this question, how is it possible? In Hari Bhakti Sudodaya, it is explained of the two evil, drinking and getting intoxicated and killing animal, which is the greater crime? Very interesting. It makes sense to me. Drinking is a greater crime, right? Because many people, those who lived in the forest, those who lived on the coastal area, where there was a less resources for eating, very judiciously they would eat meat. This whole concept of complete freedom from meat, becoming a vegan is meant for the wealthy people, right? You have to be an elite. If you call a vegetarian, you are a primitive, you'll be slandered. If you call a vegan, wow, right? So it's a different story. So certainly the Shastras and common sense explains when a person drinks, he becomes arrogant, he becomes desensitized, he becomes inhuman, and therefore Will Durant himself explains that drinking was not a big issue in India. It was very scared. But at one point of time, if you read, he has written a book called as A Case Study for India. He explains the Britishers started 25,000 official liquor places and 8,000 opium shops. And from there, it spread to such an extent, it destroyed. So therefore, absolutely, it's an evil for men or women. Why more women I am saying? Because they were abused because of this. And that very thing which abused them, and if they're promoting in the name of women's empowerment, that means they're basically questioning, slandering, not being sensitive to the hundreds and thousands of women who lost their life. They fought this evil with so much of difficulties. We don't care for them. Men are criminal when who drink, that is accepted only. But here we are explaining how women also not even understanding this. Discrimination based on caste was there in previous yuga also, or it started in Kali Yuga. See, the whole concept of discrimination based upon caste, discrimination is there in the blood of the living, and it is since he is born only. Bhishmadeva explains. We give a different name to that. Have you ever seen, now people are still talking about caste system, caste system, caste system. There is such a disparity in regards to the wealth distribution, right? There is a caste system in the management and the laborers. There is a caste system in regards to, in a village, people lived in more fluid kind of society. The wealthy landlord was here, then poor person will stay in another. There is some interaction without the security. Bombay is the highest caste system. Only those who have 10 crore rupees money will buy in one house. And in that building, you'll find nobody other than the wealthy people, right? So therefore, a caste system is an arrogant disposition which is an eternal reality, and that caste system will be destroyed when there is a cultural and a sanskar as a reality. Then people are able to interact. I remember one time Deepak Bharwani only had organized to take children to the orphanage, right from the South Bombay. One of the grandfather of the child, he said, why traumatize our children like that? I don't want them to go there, So that man was so insensitive about the suffering of the poor people. He considered taking his grandchild to such place as not worthy. And therefore, what happens? Then the entitlement comes there. When they don't see poverty around. That is an important principle. So therefore, the discrimination which the European people called as caste system, caste system, caste system, it is there everywhere, but it has been slanderously used to denigrate Sanatan Dharma. So we'll take one last question.
Prabhuji, how does yajna purify our soul?
How yajna purifies the soul?
Yeah. So like
The word
dan and
yajna.
tapa purifies. So how does
Yajna, don't consider yajna means you're sitting only near the yajna fire offering oblation. Yajna means commitment. Yajna means dedication. When a child studies, that is also yajna. Read the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Right? When a Vaishya earns his money in a judicious way, uses for his family and shares with the society, that is also yajna. Here Krishna is not talking about the different kinds of yajna. They're also important. But in the Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna speaks about the yajna of your commitment and dedication to your profession, and where expanding your own resources and expanding resources to help others. I'll take this last question. That should we always try to perform more and better work, especially if we are at our best age for growing financially? Or should we try to live with an average salary and always focus on energies into our sadhana and seva? Your sadhana and seva will be okay when your body is young and you don't have greater responsibility. And some immature people will say, just focus on your spiritual sadhana. But if you integrate both, when you have the right age, that is the time to be ambitious. Make as much resources as possible while maintaining your spiritual sadhana also. Otherwise, when you don't do that, when you will regret in the future, I need this for that, I need for that. You see that, the bigger teachers, gurus, are only cared by the rich people. Then you'll say, oh, there is a discrimination, then you want to make more money, then you are not able to make money. So therefore, all this precarious situation can be avoided completely when somebody young and ambitious have the facilities and the resources to grow while maintaining the right guidance. Today, that situation has been provided more. Maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago, there was less people who can help us from anywhere. The social media, the Zoom, the WhatsApp can always help you to take guidance while whichever part of the world you are in, to make money, not for greed, for your disposition, grow. Like Narad Muni gave that beautiful example. We can read the Money and Mahabharat, which explains earn, grow, enjoy, and share. So this is the virtuous circle of wealth generation, which Ram spoke also and Narad Muni also spoke. So thank you very much. We will meet tomorrow at 7:30 for our most important part, the journey, the conclusive journey of what is Sharanagati. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.